Good morning and welcome to CDBG Advisory Committee Special Meeting, March 4th. What is next, please?
Roll call. Committee members Armenian,
Present.
Caribbean,
Here.
Quinones Gabrielian,
Here.
Vice Chair Manukian,
Present.
Chair Avedisian.
Here.
Posting of the agenda was done on, for March 4th. The special meeting of CDBG Advisory Committee was posted on Friday, before Friday, March 1st, on the bulletin board outside City Hall. At 2, we have oral communications, and I don't think there are any speakers. No callers and no cards.
Okay, thank you. And reports, number 3.
At 3, we have reports for information only, status of active city and community capital improvement projects.
Chair Avedisian, members of the advisory committee. We have before you today Ms. Tamar Kabanjian. She's our administrative associate that oversees a lot of our CIP projects that are in construction currently, so I'm just going to turn it over to her.
Thank you.
Good morning,
morning.
CDBG Chair, committee members, and city staff. I will be presenting to you community capital improvement project status. For city CIP projects, we have Pacific Park Natural Grass Project, Pack 8 Artificial Turf Replacement Project, Pacific Park Playground and Pool Shade Structure Improvement Project, Pacific Park Splash Pad Project. Okay, for our community CIP projects, fiscal year 23 to 24, we have Community Center ADA, Vertigo Hills Council of Boy Scouts. Fiscal year 22 to 23, we have Lexington CIP Building, YWCA of Glenville and Pasadena. Fiscal year 2021 to 2022, we have 3. First one is Elma House CIP, Campbell Center, first floor all-inclusive locker room project for YMCA of Glendale, and Glendale Youth Center CIP Armenian Cultural Foundation. Fiscal year 2020 to 2021, as well as 2019 to 2020, we have roofing project home admin Adarad main campus, as well as HVAC project home admin Adarad main campus. Okay, city CIP projects. We have Pacific Park Natural Grass Project. The highlighted area in red for you are the natural grass area. Okay. Total available budget, CDBG funded $1,017,042, and for fiscal year 24 to 25, CDBG also funded $370,000. The scope of this project is redesigning of existing natural turf, baseball field, regarding and rebuilding natural turf surface, new drainage catch basins, new irrigation, expansion of central field, new bell pins, new fencing and outfield retaining walls, new grading elevations. The status report to use David Waltz Design Landscape Architects to complete the redesign of the natural turf field and provide design development or 60% drawings submitted to the project by the end of fiscal year 2024 for review. 100% of construction drawings and specs expect to be in summer of 2024. The highlighted area for you, it shows our official area for the project Pack 8 Artificial Turf Replacement Project. Okay. Total available budget, CDBG funded is $500,000. The scope is replacing of artificial turf field at Pacific Park Edison Elementary multipurpose field, improving field drainage, to address stormwater runoff issues, increasing the north fence height for safety purposes, addressing specular seating conflicts with field use, new privacy screening, and new field stripping. Evaluation of current turf system performed to determine ideal solution for field system. the city opted to switch to organic infill options. Status to report to you is city released a request for proposal for landscape architectural professional services to design the replacement of the field. 2 proposals were received, tentatively scheduled to take a motion to city council to award the design contract in March of 2024. Design phase is anticipated to take approximately 8 months to complete 100% construction drawings and specs. Okay, currently we have this in construction, which is Pacific Park Playground and Pool Shade Structure project. As you can see, these are some of the demo images. Okay, CDBG funded for this project $166,842. Scope includes installation of permanent shade structure at 2 playground areas, installation of 3 shade structures, Pacific Community Pool Deck area. Status to report to you, City Council awarded the construction contract to ARC Construction for the award amount of $2,377,902. Pacific Park's playground, splash pad, and restroom building were closed for the start of construction on November 14, 2023, and will remain closed through spring of 2024. The pool will also be closed for a 2-month period between March 4, 2024 through May 3rd of 2024 in order to complete the project. The schedule of the construction has been delayed a little bit due to unexpected rain. Okay, we have Pacific Park Splash Pad project. CDBG funded for this project $1,385,812. Scope includes replacement of current splash pad, water feature with new splash pad includes additional amenities. Status to report to you, City Council awarded the construction contract to ARC Construction again for the same amount, which is part of the remaining of the previous portion of the project. Okay.
Ms. Kabanjan, before we move forward, the community CIP projects are going to take a while because there are a lot more projects to go over. But before we move forward, do you have any questions with city CIP projects?
Any questions?
I don't have a question. Could you go back to that original slide with the history of recent grants at the very beginning? Sorry, I just missed that part. One forward.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, that one. Thank you, because I just wanted to have a reference. And so these are all still in flight?
Correct.
Okay.
Just a really quick question. We've always been concerned about the aging of our funding. So are we anywhere near at risk for losing any of that funding?
Mike?
Oh, we've always been concerned about the aging of our funding. Are we anywhere at risk for losing that?
Chair Abadisian, members of the advisory committee, committee member Quinones Gabrielian, we have actually consolidated these projects quite nicely at this point. We no longer have the timeliness issues that we had in previous years, and it's, as you can see, and you will be able to see, many of these projects are in construction phase, as Tamar will point out as soon as we're done with the conversation. But for community CIP, we're on target, as well as city CIP projects.
So will we go through where we are with these later on, or no?
You are gonna, she will be presenting
Okay.
them to you right now, as a matter
Okay,
of fact.
thank you.
Okay, we have Community Center Project ADA, Vertigo Hills Council Boy Scouts. This is the new building that they moved into, which is located on 421 North Glendale Avenue. Okay. Total CDBG funding for this project is $92,696. The scope for this project is to add additional of a vertical chairlift. Status to report to you is environmental review has been approved by city planning. City working with agency to execute the contract agreement. The project is expected to be completed by fall of 2024. So once we complete the contract between the agency and us, we are ready to start our bidding phase. Okay?
Excuse me,
Yes.
sorry, I think if the committee agrees, I think we should have questions or comments for each project, so nobody forgets anything. If anybody, or else, by the end, we're gonna forget, then we're gonna have to come back and forth with this projects. If anybody has questions, go ahead, please.
Very quickly, I noticed that that's a huge change from an elevator to a chairlift. So regarding funding requirements, were they the same or were they drastically different or what's?
Chair Avedisian, members of the advisory committee, committee member Quinones Gabrielian, this agency also lost their executive director. And at this time, the board is basically they're trying to figure out the reduction in scope of work and where the status will be with this 92,000. At this time, the information we were given is that they're going to be doing a vertical chairlift, not a regular elevator, but a chairlift, a sidewall mounted lift track, and this is the scope that they had given us before the gentleman who was the executive director had to leave and went to a different region. But we will get back to the committee to let you all know what is going on with this project.
I have one question. I have also, as I passed through the street, noticed that they are doing some portion of their construction, the project, whatever, I guess it's out of the scope of the CIP or project, correct?
It's not related to CDBG.
So that's their side of the budget, what
Yes.
they're spending or what they're doing construction.
Chair Avedisian, members of the advisory committee, as you recall, when they did attend the last meeting, last year's meeting requesting these funds, they had originally budgeted for the entire community center, where we advised them that they should not because they were paying almost 95%. They were leveraging 95%. And once you do that, you trigger the Davis-Bacon Act, and then their costs would go up because they would have to pay prevailing wage rates on the entirety of the project. Therefore, they asked for they were okay with the 92,000 and leaving it to the chairlift. So this is why they have already started with their construction the exterior construction and some interior, but they're waiting to decide what they're going to do with the interior once the exterior is done and how they're going to move forward with the CDBG.
Thank you very much. Any other question? No? Okay. Continue, please. Thank you.
Okay, we have Lexington CIP building of YWCA of Glenalem, Pasadena. For this project, the status to report to is agency organizational leadership did change. Agency is working with the updates of submitting a cancellation for this project. We are waiting for the agency to submit a formal to return the fundings back to CDBG. Therefore, this project will not be moving forward.
That's a question.
Good question.
Question? Okay, Mr. Arbanian?
Why are they canceling it?
The reason is the scope did change, and the new scope costed a lot more money in construction, and they decided they didn't want to use the CDBG and use the prevailing wage and all of that extra. They are just gonna do the project on their own.
Oh, so the
Outside
project
of
is
the
continuing,
CDBG.
just not on CDGB?
It's still pending. They have a contract, they have an architect engineer in place, so they do have drawings with the permitting department. They may or they may not move forward, but they don't want to work with CDBG fundings.
So the money we had allocated, which is the 377,884, is potentially coming back?
Yes.
Okay.
Mr. Gharibi?
Do we know when will be coming back? I mean, is it something for this year funding, or is something that's gonna?
So,
Chair-
okay.
Excuse me. Chair Avedisian, members of the advisory committee, we did receive an email from their current executive director. As we had noted, as Tamar had noted, there's an agency organizational leadership change. Therefore, we are waiting for an official board letter stating that they are returning the funds. As of now, we can't tell you exactly if and when, but the latest email states that by the end of the week, they will most likely be returning these funds.
Okay, so it's something that we know it's coming back, we just make it legal to officially to have the letter. Thank you.
Thank you. No more questions? Go ahead, please.
Okay, this project is completion. It's for Elma House CIP Campbell Center. Total CDBG funding was $497,858. Elma House serves 5 adults ages 21 to 72 with intellectual and development disabilities. And the scope of the project for this was to work on the roof of the house as well as the garage, do some interior restroom renovation to comply with ADA, as well as retrofitting of the building and the kitchen area as well. This slide shows you, images of construction work on the left side. We found some water damage, and the whole project was divided into phases due to residents living on-site during construction. Contractor closed areas of the areas to be worked on. Materials are specifically chosen to be durable, yet still provide a simple modern look. Residents are very happy and excited to be using this restroom. This is the second bathroom that we worked on. And this phase of the project was very challenging because we did have a lot of change orders coming in. There were mold found, water damage in the framing in the shower area, as well as gaps and water damage around the window area. So there were a lot of framing that needed to be replaced. Overall, as you can see, completion of the project on the bottom right, bathroom number 2 is ADA compliant with the same materials of durable decision making from the first bathroom. Okay, these images show you the in construction and completion of the project. You see the roof in construction. The left image shows you the house, and the right is the garage in the back. And then the bottom images are the completion of the project, which the leaks have been fixed, the missing plywood on the roof has been replaced, and then some of the water damages have been repaired. And then the images on the right are the water damage and mold as well found in the laundry area that was also repaired. This is the kitchen area. The construction images are above, showing you how much of a repair the kitchen area needed. Again, there was mold found in the kitchen and water damage in the framing, and the floor was also uneven. Again, this house was built in 1950s, and the agency never did any repair work due to the cost of construction. And again, it was challenging because the residents needed to stay in the house while the construction was taking place. But the contractor, Bedrock Construction, was very patient and working around the residents' scheduled time to make sure this project gets completed phase by phase. As you can see on the bottom images, the project was supposed to complete last Friday. And the last pictures that I took are actually, as you can see, there's nice cabinets, modern look. The water damages are fixed. The uneven floor has been repaired and fixed. The retrofitting has been done. And now they have a healthy kitchen to prepare their meals. Are there any questions on the Elma House?
Questions? Mr. Manukian, please.
Remind me, how many bedrooms does this house have?
5 bedrooms.
And when, on two occasions, you talked about the challenges of finding mold. Did the cost of the construction go up, or was the contingency able to handle that additional cost?
There was a change that did come in actually, and their fundings that was able to cover the extra cost.
When was this funded? When did we fund? What year was it?
This was fun. Sorry. Let me make sure.
21, 22?
Yeah.
So they're done pretty much, right?
Yes, last Friday. The reason why it took a while was because we needed to go through bidding phase, and we ended up doing 5 times of bidding phase. And for each bidding phase, we need to advertise and wait for contractors who are interested in this scope of work specifically to submit a bid. A lot of contractors did not submit a bid due to residents living in the resident during construction. Unfortunately, the agency did not have the money on their end to place them in a different hotel or different areas. So this one bedrock contractor was very patient and was doing his best to work within the budget and with the residents living on the site. So we did went on 5 times of bidding phase.
On the contrary, I was gonna say they did it pretty fast. That's where I was going with, because the permit process, that itself takes at least a year, doesn't it? So that's, I was gonna actually use them as a sample to the other agencies. So my intention was to say they did it much faster to the scope, to the permitting process and everything else. I think they did a great job, so.
We also divide the project in phases. For example, while the roof construction was being done, the retrofitting permitting was in the process of being approved. And once that was approved, then contractor moved on working on the retrofitting. While he was working on the retrofitting, the permitting for the interior ADA restrooms were in the permitting department. So that's how the project moved forward.
That's a good sample to show to other agencies to maybe how they can implement this to speed this up. And my second question is, Ms. Manukian brought it up for the contingency where they come up with the funds of the surprises, the molds, the leaks, whatever. So again, moving forward, some other agencies, surprises could come up. We have only 10% contingency. How do we know that the other agency would be able to raise the funds if surprises come up? How do we do that moving forward with other agencies? It could add up. It could be a huge number. So how can we do this?
That's a great question, and this is a question that comes up every time, Committee Member Garibian. This is something that we have informed all agencies about. We're on change order number, which number is this for Alma House?
For the kitchen area, probably 12, something.
So imagine this is change order number 12. That being said, most of these agencies are return CDBG recipients, so they are well aware of construction and what leads to kind of uncovering the first phase of whatever their construction project may be. That being said, they do need to know that there should be some sort of leverage there, more so than what they present originally, and they always tend to end up paying more than what the proposal states. All the time. This is basically how it works. They know this. They definitely know this.
My fear is, let's say they're halfway through construction and that all the change orders and surprises, and it's so much money that they don't have the money. We funded probably the middle of the construction, and it could be a disaster.
Right. So most of the time they will do fundraisers. They look for other funding sources. They have yet to come back mid-construction, and we don't want to see that ever, to come back mid-construction to tell us they need more CDBG funding. So if it's in a phase period, for instance, phase 1, we're okay with that. They can complete phase 1 and then come back and ask us for phase 2 funds. That's okay, but they shouldn't be without money for that phase one while they're in construction. And then
Thank
we
you.
also asked them to have some sort of, kind of basically like working with their bank, trying to figure out what loans that they can get and setting that money aside just for this particular project.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Sorry, go ahead. Anybody else? No, go ahead, please. Continue.
Next, in construction, we have first floor all-inclusive locker room of YMCA of Glendale. Total CDBG funding for this project is $1,125,000. I have some construction photos to share with you. We have maybe a month left to complete this project. As you can see, the installation of the doors, some of the toilets, faucet and sink have been installed. The floor of the tiling has been completed. Talking about change orders, we've received maybe 37 change orders that came in. Again, it was all unseen of water damage that was found. The agency did use some of the CDBG fundings as well as other donation fundings to cover the damage. Any questions on this?
Do you have any questions? You good? Thank you.
Okay, next we have Armenian Cultural Foundation Glendale Youth Center CIP project. Okay, total CDBG funding is $116,000. Status to report to you is we are working with the agency to work on the scope of work and process their contract before moving forward with the bidding phase. Project is expected to be completed by fall of 2024. Any questions? Yep.
Sorry, it wasn't clear. So what is the status? You said it's in bidding?
No, we are working with the agency on the scope of work in our contract. So the scope that is the HVAC upgrade, adding 24 security cameras, installation of door key cards, remodel of 500 square feet library. These may change. We are working with the agency to sort of figure out what scope of work they want to keep and what part of the work to remove.
Change based on what? Finances or?
Yes.
Okay.
It is costing a lot of money to cover $116,000 to do
All of that?
Exactly, yeah.
Okay.
It is expensive, especially when you're adding the prevailing wage.
So there's a chance they may reduce the scope
Yes,
to fit within the existing funding?
yes.
Okay. And when will we know that? Because it's saying project to be completed fall 2024, that's not a lot of time.
Recently, there was a change in their executive directors, and we met with the agency, and we are just waiting on their final, probably a week. In a week, we'll hopefully wrap the contract
Okay,
and move forward.
thank you.
Mr. Garibian.
I assume we are within the time frame which we don't have one. It's recently funded, I think, right? Was just funded last year, if I'm not mistaken, on this one?
Year before.
Or the year before?
Yes, the year before.
So we are still time frame, so it's
Yes.
okay with that. Thank you.
Go ahead.
Any of the scope of work require permits?
Probably the remodel of 500 square feet library cafeteria.
So would that, if that scope of work is kept, would the fall 2024 completion date be reasonable considering the time it takes to get permits?
Unless if they are doing, probably not, but unless if they are doing design and build, the way that Home Admin process their project.
I think HVAC units permits too.
Yes, it does need, and HVAC, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, so we're looking at this project to most likely delayed much
Yeah.
further than what it is. Yeah. All right. Anybody else? No?
Well, sorry, I'm getting confused. The slide is saying projects expected to be completed by 2024.
I don't think that's
But
reasonable.
I know that's what I was trying to raise, so they're still gonna, staff, I just want to understand, make sure I'm understanding it. Staff hopes to have a contract in place in the coming few weeks, based on a reduced scope to fit within the funding allocation. And then how much time from there would it take? I know it probably depends on what the scope is, but just thinking, let's say they drop one of these multiple projects, does staff still think that 2024 is a reasonable date on it or not?
If they only do the security cameras and installation of door key cards where it doesn't need a permit, then they will be able to, yes.
Okay, otherwise, we're looking at slipping into next year?
Yes.
Okay, thank you for that clarification.
Thank you. Anybody else? Thank you. Continue.
Okay, next we have Home Admin chapter roofing project main campus. This project is in construction. The image you see on the right is before construction started. Scope of the work is to replacement of 3 main areas of the roof at main campus due to their water damage and leaks. I have for you some construction images. Again, the schedule was delayed because of unexpected rain, but the subs and the roofer did their best to come in as soon as the rain stopped and did the repair works. They did the demo. As you can see, the subs are doing the polyurethane spray. Okay, CDBG funded for this project $542,401. Again, this project is in status, is in construction. And the second portion of the Home Admin project is installation of their HVAC project. As you can see, their old HVAC system is 20 years old, the image showing you on the right. I don't have a new picture for you for the HVAC because the contract did order and it takes about 4 to 5 weeks. Sorry, my paper got stuck. Okay, CDBG funded $200,000 for this project. Replacement of 9 HVAC units and decking. The project is in construction as soon as the roofing starts, then they can install the curbs and HVAC sets on the curbs. Any questions on the Home Admin?
Questions? Yes?
And then the last part will be reinstallation of the solar panels?
Exactly. They have about 200 solar panels to bring back. It's currently on the site for storage, and they will bring it back and then reinstall.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? One question is just a concern, as a comment. Mentioned that the HVAC system has been ordered and we're waiting for the new ones to arrive, correct?
Right.
So when they start the project, during the start of the construction, didn't they order it ahead of time? They have to wait until the last minute to order it?
In this situation, in this condition, no, because they needed to bring in another sub to understand what kind of units are necessary for this facility. And based on the discussion with the contractor, there are 3 different units that they needed to be ordered. I believe one was 5 tons, the other one is 7.5 ton, and another one is 3 ton. So they just needed to understand how many of the units for each ton needed for the areas of use.
I understand. However, when they're bidding on the project, how did they came up with a number if they don't know the configuration of the units, what kind of units they're going to use? So that's, to me, it brings a concern that the contractor doesn't know what he's doing. I don't know what's the right word, but how does this work if you're a contractor and you're bidding on a job? Because my concern is that they're gonna come back and say, okay, the cost went up because the unit configuration changed. Now the prices are different than what we had bid. So that's what my concern is, and how is this gonna work out if that happens?
So the contractors submit their bids based on the information that the agency provides to them. So if the agency is providing to them, order me 9 units of 7 tons, that's how they submit their bids. However, during the construction, they figure out, wait a minute, you submitted a specifications that showed me 7 tons. You don't need 7 tons for this area, and they try to work with the agency to order as required for the areas. So the contractors do submit their bids based on what information has been provided to them.
Okay, in this case, actually, now that you explain, that means the cost might go down because there's a 3-ton and there's a
Exactly.
5-ton and a 7.5 ton. So the cost might change actually to the lower end of it, hopefully.
Yes.
So at least the agency, and also the concern is that the agency is not in trouble the last minute. Okay, we have to come up with more money. What do we do? All right, thank you. Any other question? Mr. Gargan, please.
Just follow up on my colleague, so not necessarily in this agency's case, but if the agency provides it, I assume the agency have a expertise who say this is what you need to do before going out and negotiating with contractors or even putting it on their application and applying. Now, again, because we're lucky in this case, it could also be the other way around and reversed. Could be, oh, what are you talking about? You don't need 7, you need 16. Codes changed and yada yada. So is there a way we can ask these agencies, where do you get this information? They have architect beyond you, yeah. Any special, somebody giving, like, for example, we have these agencies applying. I can question so many of them. How do I know this is what's gonna cost you? Maybe you're gonna go and contractor says, no, it's gonna double.
During our bidding phase, we do require the agencies to have specifications in place. The specifications are prepared by a licensed architect, and so they rely on those information to submit their bids. Now, things change, and sometimes they decide, okay, I can't afford, so I need to reduce. So they end up changing the amount of HVAC systems as well.
Was that the case here, the affordability, or the original advisor, somebody who doesn't know what they're talking about? So we blacklist that person.
In this condition, this was actually a unique project because it's a design and build.
Right.
The design and build is when the contractor handles the permitting section. And so when the way I understand it is the contractor went to get the permits for HVAC. And when they submitted their square footages of the building, then that's when they were advised that they didn't need the tons, the X amount for the spacing.
By
So
the
that's when the
city.
changes took place.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other question? No? Thank you.
Okay, and that's
Thank
any
you.
questions overall?
Anybody else? Any other questions added?
Thank you for the report. Great job.
Of course, thank you, and all agencies do appreciate the CDBG funding, especially Elma House. I know Campbell Center their residents were living in an unhealthy environment of preparing their food and sleeping in a condition where there's hidden mold and water damage. And they just reminded me to inform you all that they do appreciate the CDBG fundings to repair their house.
Thank you very much. Oh, question.
Sorry, I was just taking some notes and off your slides. So when I look at Ararat, Homeland Ararat, currently, because we're going to be talking about them in a little bit as one of the applicants, but for what we've approved already, which is approximately $750,000 roof and HVAC, both slides said anticipated project completion by June 24, which is a couple months away. Is staff
Yes.
confident that that's going to happen?
Yes.
Okay.
We are done with the polyurethane, most of the areas, due to the unexpected rain over the weekend. So they will be able to complete the spraying end of this week, and then hopefully move forward within the project. But yes, they are confident and working on completing the project. We meet up with the contractor and agency every Friday for this project, and based on the previous week, they inform us they're on schedule.
Okay, thank you.
Chair Avedisian, I just want to say, it really put a big smile on my face to see the completion of things like the Alma House and our projects that we're funding. Thank you. Thank you for the status update.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for the report. What's next, please?
Next is action items. 4A, reprogramming return CDBG Community Capital Improvement Project funds totaling $171,841 from various program years. At 1 is a motion providing direction to staff on reprogramming of returned CDBG Community Capital Improvement Project funds totaling $171,841 from fiscal year 22-23 Essentia Repiping Project in the amount of $31,840. Fiscal year 23-24 Essentia Repiping Project for $20,001, and fiscal year 23-24 Neighborhood Legal Services of LA Projects for $120,000.
Okay. Anyone wants to make a motion, wants comments, directions, questions? Go ahead.
That's a lot of funds being returned. I just wanted to get staff's perspective on what you think is happening from a trend perspective.
Chair Avdisian, members of the advisory committee, committee member Armenian, you are correct. There is a lot of movement with these funds. Staff truly believes that we need to start fully funding agencies and allowing larger projects to move forward and be completed faster rather than piecemealing these projects. And you'll see in this, it's a very short presentation because it's just 2 agencies returning funds, but you'll see that, for instance, Essentia, they came 2 separate times for very minor dollars. And at the end, they decided to return their funds because once they evaluate or reevaluate what needs to be done, they have to look towards other venues for funding, for instance, foundations, grants, and other sources. So let me go through this slide with you, and then maybe we can have a conversation on that, because once you start your interviews, these are good questions to ask the agencies who are going to be available today.
So you're going to go through like why each of them?
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
Because I'll probably have follow-up after that. Thank
Because
you.
Essentia might be the one that will really kind of
Okay.
drill it home.
Thank you.
So with Essentia Repiping Project, they returned project funds totaling about $51,000 from 2 different fiscal years, 22-23 and then 23-24. Their reasoning was agency is changing their scope of work and would return in 2024 to apply for CDBG funding. The advisory committee didn't see this in Zoom grants, but they did actually submit an application for about $120,000 with the changed scope of work for their repiping project. Then they decided to reconsider and let us know not to consider them for 2024 due to these time constraint problems they were having. Most likely they're having, they have other funding sources that probably need to be used up quickly, and CDBG would take a little bit longer. So the staff recommendation is to accept the $51,840 and apply it towards this year's requests that have come in for community capital improvement projects. Next, we have Neighborhood Legal Services of Los Angeles. They received $120,000 last year. And again, reason for returning their funds, agency project had unforeseen circumstances which they cannot move forward with their project at this time. Their reasoning was a little bit more vague, so we didn't get too much information from them. So they're probably going to rework their scope of work most likely. But again, the recommendation is to accept the 120,000 and use it towards this fiscal year's estimated community capital improvement projects.
Okay, thank you very much. Any questions, comments? Go ahead.
So I'm not understanding, for example, the last one, it's pretty straightforward. It was a parking lot resurfacing. I mean, was the 120,000 inadequate? Or they just decided not to do it, or a little bit confused?
Don't know. Their letter was quite vague. They just said unforeseen circumstances. We actually don't know what those unforeseen circumstances are at this time. So we're not sure if they weren't able to secure funding from other sources that they anticipated. We can't be confident to tell you exactly what that was.
I mean, the part that's disappointing here is, we make these decisions, 120,000 is a lot of money that we put into it, and we make that at the expense of other agencies, getting fully funded, which is, then I understand it helps us today because we have a shortfall, but, at the time when we're making these decisions, it jeopardizes potentially other projects. So I think that's where you're going with the fully fund or don't.
Correct.
And I can't remember in this case whether the 120,000 was fully funding or not.
And it was not.
Okay.
It was not. They actually came back and said, we'll accept the reduced 120,000. It was a last minute deliberation question.
Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Garibay.
I think if I'm not mistaken, this was something I brought up. I think the size to the cost, I said, you're too high. I remember it was like 6,500 square feet give and take, and I said, you're too expensive for just resurfacing. And I know I brought that up. That's what we gave them a phases, so could be potentially too expensive.
Question, concern, or the future maybe. This type of cases, now they return, we don't have to ask, or we don't need to know, or they don't need to let us know, or the staff, that exactly why they're returning it. And what my colleagues are also said, that consequences of the returning it against all other organizations that they apply and agencies that they apply and they don't get. Is there some sort of a, I don't know, metrics, something that we could maybe staff look into it, that we could add on to the application process? Something that puts the agencies in question to consider their projects more in detail from beginning, before even applying, to make sure what they're asking and what their minimums or potentials that could be can work. If they see that there's whatever dollars that we are considering is not going to work, or they might not work with their project, during the interviews, they can come and say, guys, honestly, we cannot do this project because of these dollars. If we don't have that $100,000, that's it. There's no way that we can do it any other way. We don't have the funds, or whatever the case may be. At least at that beginning, so we can look into other agencies and maybe reprogram it and change it around during the meeting, or right before ending the meeting, and instead of going forward and then coming back. And a lot of agencies lose out, and that's heartbreaking. We always consider either on the CIP end of it or the social services. They come back, and most of these monies, they come back a lot of times from the social services, comes back and goes to CIP projects. But then again, social service organizations that they applied, and they didn't get what they wanted or needed to. Can we put some sort of a policy or something in that matter?
Chair Avedisian, the committee actually did that in a sense in the fall, this last fall, when you made those recommendations about agencies being shovel-ready, agencies submitting a estimate from a licensed contractor. All of those recommendations you made were implemented for this particular fiscal year. This is remnants of what are still kind of lingering in a sense from the previous years and previous decisions. That being said, I think if we move forward with your recommendations as a committee that you made in the fall of 2023, I'm pretty confident that we aren't going to see so many return funds like we used to do.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you. Honestly, I didn't remember that portion of it.
And-
I guess my memory is losing. Mr. Garibay, please.
So I think I'm okay to put a motion and go with the staff recommendation to add funds to this year's funding. So I'll put a motion to go with the staff recommendation to add 120,000 funds as part of the estimated community capital improvement projects allocated CDBG Advisory Committee to make funding recommendations.
Is it 120 or is it 171?
171, that's correct.
$171,841 to be exact.
A second.
That's the motion. We have a motion and we have a second.
I'll take
Roll call, please.
Committee members Armenian,
Yes.
Garibian,
Yes.
Quinones Gabrielian,
Yes.
Vice Chair Manukian,
Yes.
Chair Avedisian.
Yes. Thank you. What's next, please?
Next, item 4B is funding recommendations for fiscal year 24-25 capital improvement projects. At 1 is to conduct interviews with capital improvement applicants, deliberate, and make funding recommendations. And the first agency is Home Amendment Glendale Aurora for a bathroom renovation project.
Okay, since we have Momentum already here, I guess let's start it, but I was gonna suggest for a short 5 minutes break, if everybody's okay, right before we started, give us 5 minutes break, and then we'll come back and we'll go through the interviews.
Sure, we can take a 5-minute
5
break.
minutes, thank you. All right, we are back to session. Next is starting our interviews with Home Amendment Ararat
Chair
bathroom
Avadisian,
renovation.
Chair Avadisian, members
Yes.
of the advisory committee, before we bring up Home Amendment Ararat chapter, we just want to give you a quick interview schedule. We've got 3 interviews today. We also want to remind the committee about applicant scoring completed in Zoom grants. Agency presentation time is 5 minutes. Question and answer period is about 10 minutes. And then we'll do a short break before deliberation, and then we'll go into deliberation and recommendations, and then we hope to adjourn today at noon.
Thank you.
First up is Homeman Gondelara. If you could please state your name for the record.
Good morning. My name is Serge Grakassian. I'm the Executive Director of Home Management Glendale Ararat.
Good morning.
Good morning. First of all, let me, before going to the new project, let me re-emphasize as far as the old project that we have is ongoing project. I brought you some pictures, kind of very current ones from last week. First of all, thank you for the approval of the grant and then kind of moving the money towards that roofing and HVAC project that we had. So hopefully we'll be done with the roofing very shortly. We're happy with that. And also I just wanted to emphasize, because there were some questions when I walked in actually, we just have to remember that that project was approved back in 2018. So it was like way before pandemic, and all the things that happened between then and now changed the scope and the pricing of this whole project. So when you were asking about the cost and estimates that were kind of off, well, they were off because of the price increases, and also the fact that after so many years, the roof was actually in a worse condition than it was in 2018. And some of the ACs, we had to replace them. So we had to make some adjustment as far as the ACs and so forth. And we worked it out with the contractor, and we agreed that anything that goes beyond the funded amount, we will absorb that. And so far we have done it. So I just wanted to let you know that that's what kind of happened in a sense. And but again, we're happy with the project and the progress of the project. So thank you for that.
Great, thank you for the update.
So our new project, and again, that project was approved in 2021 actually. It was the renovation and kind of major kind of renovation of our bathrooms. And we have 4 bathrooms in our first floor next to the gyms and the hallways, and then 1 more in the foyer area that we would like to have 2 over there. So as I had mentioned, before, when we applied to the original grant in 2020. Bathrooms are in bad shape, and mainly the plumbing. So the main problem that we're having, and it really costs us a lot of money every year because we have to just repair and repair and repair. Those are patchworks that we do. And so at that time, the project was about 200,000. Unfortunately, now it's about close to 500,000. And we kind of estimated that we would leverage about 61,000. So we're requesting 433,540 from CDBG. Again, it's the complete overhaul of our bathrooms, except the mainframe walls. We're not going to touch those. It's just internal, and the plumbing underground. So that's the major problem that we're having now. If you walk into our center now, you can smell that there is something is wrong there. And as I said, all the patchwork and all the temporary fixes that we have done, they help for a while, and then the problem comes back again. So. Other than that, as I mentioned, it was an approved project. It had its merit at that time, so we would appreciate, Commission's consideration again for this year. Thank you. If there are any questions.
Thank you. Have questions? Mr. Arabian, please.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Welcome back. You said you're going to add, I'm trying to find where you're going to add. I have a floor plan.
Yeah.
The floor plan has 2 orange circles only, and I can't tell, it's not clear enough. You're going to add a bathroom on the foyer where you go in on the right.
Yeah. There is a bathroom right now there, and there is a storage area behind it that used to be a bathroom.
I see.
But at some point they covered it, just to make it storage, because maybe at that time, I don't know, 20-some years ago, there was no need to have 2. Now I think we have the need to have 2 of them in that area. So there is a room. There is actually a space available for that.
Bathroom or something
Right,
behind. Okay.
right.
And then you say you're adding to the second floor or existing one on the second floor?
No.
Everything is just on the first floor. Okay.
Yeah, everything on the first floor.
So my question is the following. If you don't get all the funds, can you do some of the bathrooms, 1 of them, 2 of them? Because I don't see a breakdown. I see all at once as far as the contractors' bid is. Didn't break it down into which bathrooms and so on and so forth.
Yeah.
So that's my question. Can you do, any of the bathrooms and what the cost is? Because I don't see the breakdown.
Yeah. Mr. Garvin, you're right. I don't have the breakdown as far as the foyer area and the hallway/gym area. We can certainly do that because they are not related to each other. They're far away, so it won't really interfere if we do one of them in case we have to do it because of the funding limitations. But we would rather do all of them together because you never know sometimes, when you open up the ground, what we'll see, and maybe it would be just better to do all at once. But to your questions, we're open to that, but it's kind of questionable because, I don't know when we open up the ground what we'll see there.
And you mentioned somewhere in your application about the Hurrah, the Miracle program.
Right.
Are they using these facilities? When they do use it, is it our facilities or different locations?
No, those special need kids, they utilize our center.
Your center?
Yeah,
okay.
on Sundays. And so that's another issue that we would like to kind of make sure that our bathrooms are, adequate for those kids also. Even though they are ADA compliance now, but we would like to reinforce that and maybe add a few more just to be on the safe side.
Because that's a great program. I know you guys started a few years back. It's fantastic, and I know it's expanding also. But under the questions that it was listed for you guys, I want to this is the comment. On the program priority, question number 21, was checkmarked youth services. But I would definitely look forward if you check mark under a service for the disabled, because that's what you do, Rush. Isn't that what the
That's
Rush
part
is?
of, yeah, that's part of the program, yeah.
So just want to make sure you can add that to your programs that you do. Thank you so much.
Sure, thank you.
Questions?
In your application, the actual amount is more than what you're asking for from CDBG. So in other words, you're leveraging some of your own funds for this, correct?
Yes, correct.
Are those funds already available, or you have to go and raise them?
No, they are available.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I think you asked what I was looking at. The scope is large, and you've mentioned that you don't know what you're going to find when you start taking out. And my question was, do you have enough of your own funds in order to absorb any additional funding requirements?
Yes, we do, ma'am.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, any other question?
I have a question about the current project for the roof and HVAC. Are you going to be within the original budget, including contingency?
Well, when we met with the contractor, in a sense, we had to leverage more than what we anticipated in the beginning. Again, it's because of the change in the scope of some of the work, because as you can see in the pictures, there were areas of the roofing that were pretty bad, and maybe it's because of the last 2 years of rain. I don't know when those things happened, but so we had to put more on our own money, but we committed to that, and we don't have an issue there. So, I mean, we went kind of over the budget, but we committed to those funds, so there shouldn't be any problem.
And so if this project also has unforeseen circumstances and you go over the contingency and the amount that you've committed to leveraging, you're able to complete it?
Yeah, yes. Unfortunately, those things, again, can happen, but we have no choice. I mean, this is something that we need to do. It's been, I don't know, right now, 4 or 5 years now? So we are coming back for this project again. So it's something that we need to do it. So we'll do enough fundraising, I hope, and with some donations, we'll get it done.
Sounds good, thank you.
For 5 years that you're trying to do it, but how old are the bathrooms?
I think those are maybe the original. As far as accessories, no, but the structure itself, probably the original. So we're going back to 20-some years.
So the bathrooms haven't been pretty much touched?
No, the second floors were done through the CDBG, funds,
Right,
but not the
not the first floor.
not the first.
Thank you.
One quick question, and I think we're done, if everybody's okay. Are you planning to do the process, the construction, in the phases? Because if you start the construction with all the restrooms at the same time, and as occupied and busy as the center is, how are you gonna be able to manage it? Or you're gonna do one part of the restrooms at one portion, get it done, so people can use it, and then go to the other
Right.
part? Or how's the plan? What's the
Yeah,
plan?
well, gyms and the hallway bathrooms are priority for us, because that's where the problem is, kind of the smell and all. So that would be our priority in a sense. And of course, we have also bathrooms in the second floor, but that would not help, disabled kids or
Right.
elderly. So we do have those bathrooms available, but again, the priority will be those 4 bathrooms that in the gym and hallway areas.
And your permitting process, have you even looked at it? Are
We
you started
kind of, we
in process?
started, have not filed yet, but again, that's the amount that we're leveraging anyway, so if it's anything that we
My
need to pay.
concern is the time limit, timeline. So make sure to get it done, or get the project done within the time.
We should be able to do it.
Okay, all right. Any other question? No? Thank you very much. and
Thank
good
you.
luck.
Thank you.
Take care.
Thank you.
All right. Next, we have the Community Center Catholic Charities.
We have Catholic Charities for Glendale Community Center. If you may please state your name for the record.
My name is Sandra Yanez. I'm here with Catholic Charities of Los Angeles. I'm here with Isabel Gregorian, Program Manager for the Glendale Community Center. We're here requesting funding for a new roof. We're coming back. Unfortunately, the first time that we were here and received funding, COVID hit, and we were at a pause for a number of years. And unfortunately, funding for these project, or not funding, sorry, the amount of the cost had pretty much doubled, if not tripled, over that time period, and we were unable to fulfill the project altogether. So we are here once again requesting funding for a smaller scope of work.
Thank you. Questions? Mr. Garriga.
Hi, welcome. So about 6,600 or actually 7,500 square feet of roof you're trying to cover with the TPO roofing. And that's coming out to about $36 to $38 per square feet, somewhere in that range. Is that what the bids you've been getting?
It has. So we actually submitted 2 bids. We actually reached out to staff requesting, because we had heard verbals that it was going to be much higher than the 1 bid that we had received. So we did actually reach out to staff, and they did have a recommendation for us from a contractor who is already doing 2 projects. So we feel that the amount of that bid is probably more realistic and along the lines of what the cost would be for an entire new roof.
Nice. Do you have to remove anything, or you're good on the roof as far as ACs, HVACs, any of those?
They will not be removed.
So, thank you.
Monica?
Yeah, I did notice the big difference in the 2 bids, over $100,000 difference. And I agree with your position of taking the higher and more conservative bid and with the more experienced contractor, because you don't want to be in the middle of the
Right.
project and realize that you have to pay a lot more.
Indeed, thank you.
Thank you. Any other question? Wow. It's your lucky day today. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Door of Hope. Oh, they're here.
The next agency is here, Door of Hope, for a transitional housing expansion project. If you could please state your name for the record.
Good morning. My name is Megan Katurgian, Chief Executive Officer of Door of Hope. I'm here with Regina Williams, Chief Program Officer, and Jim Howe, Chief Operating and Financial Officer. And just proceed? Okay. All right. Well, thank you. We are here presenting our proposal for $762,583 to fund the addition of 3 new residential units for unhoused domestic violence survivors and their families. That would be at our facility that we have been operating in Glendale since 2009. And here to share more about that program's high impact in our community is Regina.
Good morning.
Morning.
So we currently operate 4 transitional housing sites, one of them being here in the city of Glendale. We serve 14 single moms with kids who are all homeless as a result of domestic violence. We provide intensive services, including case management, life skill classes where we cover topics such as financial budgeting, parenting, and we also provide mental health counseling and a full children's and youth program, realizing that we want to serve the entire family. we're really proud about for the program that we run, and we believe that our data demonstrates that. Last year, 78% of our families were able to increase their savings. 92% of our families showed improved mental health outcomes, and 91% of our kids showed improved social-emotional outcomes. And while we're really proud, we also understand that we can do more. Last year, we received 270 phone calls for families trying to get into our Glendale site. But we only had 5 vacant units last year. And even with the being able to fill all 14 of those units, that still would leave 93% of families who called seeking shelter. So we obviously know that there is a tremendous need. And now I'm going to pass it over to my colleague, Jim.
Good morning, everyone. If you're not familiar with this building, it was built back in the 40s, and it's in dire need of some renovations. So not only are we intending to expand the number of units, but we're wanting to bring the building back up to current standards. So as Regina mentioned, we currently serve we have 14 residential units at the site, and our project in total over 3 phases would add 11 new units. And we do this within the same footprint of the building, recognizing that the units are all larger than necessary for our intended clientele. So we saw some opportunity to go in and divide some of the units, move some walls around, and create those additional units. As you may be aware from the report, we anticipate 3 new units in phase 1, and that's what we're funding currently. So 3 new units and the addition of a therapy space for counseling services. So with the renovation will come things like fire sprinklers for the whole building, life safety sorts of considerations, new security fencing, a new gate, upgrade of the electrical system for the building, all new HVAC, so that each unit would have its a new mini split sort of a system, and several other considerations around that. So we are seeing a couple of different revenue sources for the project. The CDBG funds through the City of Glendale, and we've had an application in with Adam Schiff's office pending approval of the federal budget for our initial round of funding for this project. So those are the 2 primary sources. We've been working with 2 different contractors in securing proposals, and we have 2 that we continue to process through as we look to finalize who it would be that would be doing the construction for us. So as you all know, we do have plans with the city, and we're moving forward in a plan check sort of a process with the City of Glendale. So that's where we are currently, and we're excited to hopefully get this project moving this year. Thank you.
Thank you. I have a couple of questions. My colleagues normally ask all the hard questions and nothing left for me. I want to jump in this time. Sure. First of all, you're gonna add on more units from the existing units, right? You're gonna divide those units. What's gonna happen meanwhile during the construction with your tenants?
Yeah,
your clients?
that's a great question. Recognizing that we have essentially 4 units that will be displaced during phase 1, we have the ability to go ahead and partition a couple of existing units that we won't go through a full remodel process of, but we will accommodate those existing tenants by increasing the density in some other areas of the building.
I see. So you're gonna double up basically some of the units.
Correct, yep.
My main question, and I think everybody's concern is the same thing, or mostly. You've applied for funding from the state, from the federal, from Adam Schiff's office, which is great, obviously. If for any reason the budget doesn't get approved, and so you don't get that 850,000, what happens with the project now?
Yes, well, we wished that we were coming here today with a final federal budget passed, and unfortunately that has not transpired yet. We're very confident that it will be in the final budget when passed. However, because of the unknowns, we have reached out to Supervisor Catherine Barger's office and had her team tour the building. We do have a track record of her helping us get some discretionary designated funds toward a new shelter project that we're undergoing right now in Pasadena. She also helps us fund the programs currently at our Glendale site, just like the CDBG program funds do. And so she has expressed a willingness to come in and help fill some of that gap. We're also in the middle of a $10 million capital campaign right now for this new shelter project in Pasadena that I mentioned, and some program growth costs. And we have 3 foundations that would be coming in toward the end of that, so that if we can complete that $10 million campaign with private funds, we could go to those cluster of private foundations instead for this project. So we have a couple of things. Of course, we're hoping for the best with the federal budget first, and then trying to make other plans accordingly. The private funds would be the bulk of where we would be looking to close the gap, private foundations and individuals.
Okay, thank you. So in case that doesn't happen, the private funds, still it's a guesswork. It's not a guarantee funds that it's available right now. They're committed regardless if you get the federal funds or not. There is no commitment, 100% commitment on those funds, correct?
That is
So it's
correct.
still a guesswork,
It is still a guesswork.
all the way to the end, to when the time comes or when you approach it. And that's a commitment for the Pasadena you mentioned, correct? What, you have that $10 million campaign?
We have the $10 million campaign, but the foundations that are going to come in at the end, there's been no designation for that yet. They are bought into our goal to increase shelter capacity overall. So we could potentially redirect the proposals toward the Glendale home if we need to.
I see. Okay, thank you. Mrs. Abreu, please.
Great job at asking what I was going to ask. Thank you so much.
Armenian, then Manukian.
You've mentioned the guesswork part, but right now, I just want to be clear, Supervisor Barger has not made a specific commitment.
Yeah, no, this is the hardest question. So thank you for leading it off with that, and the hardest answer that because we have been waiting and hoping that this would be passed, we don't have any active irons in the fire right now, just preliminary.
Okay, and I do note that each of the elected officials have written support letters, but that's not money in the bank for the project. And what about Congressman Schiff? Any commitments of pursuing federal funding or no?
So the community projects request, that $850,000 has been passed through the appropriations committees, and that we are guessing and hoping is going to be in the federal budget, that's through his office.
But not confirmed yet?
Not confirmed until the federal budget is passed.
Correct, which we know we're in a dilemma there already.
Yes.
And then I noted that Assemblywoman Carrillo also wrote a letter of support. Anything on the state level?
No, we have not had any discussions or applications for state funding.
Is there a reason you haven't pursued state funding through her office?
No, not just because I'm not aware. You mean if like for a directed grant or
Yeah.
discretionary? No, we have not. We don't have a history there, so that's something worth looking into.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a good year because of the state budget deficit, but I would encourage you to, I mean, you're taking a look at everything, so might as well throw the state in there too.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'm hearing, I just want to make sure I'm hearing it correctly, that there's a lot of, first of all, my questions aren't about the worthiness of the project. I just want to be clear on that. I've actually had the privilege of visiting the facility, and it's a great service that you're providing to those in need. And I'm glad you're looking at the project. in terms of upgrading the facility, because it could use that. But right now, what I'm hearing is that there's a bunch of irons in the fire, nothing firm yet,
That is correct, yeah.
including your own fundraising at this point.
Correct, yeah, yeah, that is correct. The one bucket that I didn't also mention is we've been talking with Mike Fortney and the possibility of home funds and whether those could come in and fill some of this gap as well. But all irons in the fire and contingent on applications that we would have to pivot if we don't get the federal funds.
So on all this, just to ask from a timing perspective, do you have any potential timing on any of these sources, or is it all up in the air indefinitely right now?
It is all up in the air, waiting for the federal budget to, give us a yes or no.
And then what about the county?
Oh, Supervisor Barger's office. She's waiting to hear what our gap number is, and then to make plans accordingly, whether that is outside of her scope for a directed gift to finish it off, and to help us get funding elsewhere.
Okay, thank you.
Mrs. Manukin.
I want to first applaud you for making the project be about increasing the number of units, because that serves more people. My question is, I want to understand the project a bit more. So in layman's terms, you're creating more units by moving walls, right? So are we talking about making the bedrooms and the living rooms smaller, or are we talking about touching bathrooms and kitchens? Because that would be more expensive than the first two.
Yeah, I'll address that. We've also just seen our architect walk in, Alma Giron from the architect's office, if there's any technical questions for you all. We are upgrading everything. So we're really doing 100% remodel of all of the bathroom spaces, the kitchenette spaces, and in several cases, those things will get moved around a little bit to accommodate the growing density, right? So the average unit size gets shrunk considerably, but all of those elements will be renovated.
And how many units right now? I forgot, is it 16?
It starts at 14.
14.
And we add 11. So we're coming really close to doubling the overall capacity.
And you feel confident that with the new plans, the smaller spaces are still going to be adequate for the purpose?
Yeah, they're actually quite similar to our Pasadena new project that we're getting ready to undertake on Marengo. So we've used a really similar kind of a micro suite approach, such that every unit has an ensuite bathroom. And I believe we've got kitchens in these units as well, right? Kitchenettes?
I'd love Regina to actually answer that.
Yeah, so we've seen just from our other sites where that it works really well for families to have their own ensuite, but at this site here in Glendale, the kitchen, each family will still have their own kitchen. It'll just be a smaller space.
I see. Thank you.
Mr. Garibia.
Hello, thanks for coming. Since my colleagues attacked all the fundings, I'm going to attack the project directly. So a few things, maybe your architect is here. First, I want to understand the numbers here, because on the budget and the details, the $762,583, is that just for phase one or for the entire phase? I'm not clear no matter how many times I read it.
Yeah. Your funding would be to support phase one, and it's that funding plus the shift fundings that get us over the phase one portion of the work. And I would just add, as we think about the shift commitment, as Megan alluded to, this has all been through committee review, and we'd actually asked for close to twice that number, and they came back to us and they said, no, we think we can do this amount. So, really this could be as early as next month that we would understand that the federal funds are there, and that's why we've had an expectation based on them telling us what the available amount is. We've had an expectation that those funds will be made available to us for that project. So we're really thinking that's going to be the case, but waiting for the federal government to pass the budget. I know that's a little beyond your question, but
Right.
phase one is what we're talking about in terms of funding currently.
So the total I see here, 1.9 million, that's for phase one only?
That's for phase one only, yes.
All right, so, then you have 3 phases, so we're looking at $6 million, give and take?
So the second and third phase will be slightly less expensive than the first phase due to some of the infrastructure pieces that we'll be accommodating in phase one. Things like getting new service across the street and putting a transformer in, these kinds of things that won't have to be repeated in the future phases. We're seeing phase 2 and 3 in the 1.5 to 1.6 range.
I see you have about 219,000 worth of utilities, sewer, asphalt, and all that stuff, which probably won't be in phase 2 and 3.
Right.
So from 700 something, about 200 comes out, again, you're looking at about 500,000 per other 2 phases. So again, we're looking at about $3 million maybe for the entire, or close to 4 million. Now, I'm also looking at the phase number of units that you're adding. You see, you're adding 11 units, right? But the way it's written in the budget, phase 1 adds 3 units, phase 2 adds 2 units, phase 3 adds 4 units. That's 9. Where's the other 2?
We may have made a mistake in the budget. As I was going back over those figures in preparation for the meeting today, second phase actually adds 4 units.
I see, okay. And the last question, have you guys considered, with all this cost, if you sell your existing property, buy another one, maybe it's faster and cheaper? Because I'm sort of seeing you converting the apartment building to a hotel or motel or long stay way of situation that is existing as a kitchen and a bathroom each unit, so which is a great idea for your purpose actually. But have you looked at it? Maybe it'd be cheaper just buy another one. All the funding's coming in.
We have not priced anything in Glendale. I suspect that, I'm not sure if that hypothesis would hold. If we did with all of the renovations we would probably still need to do to get it up to par for our services. Right now, there are loans that are restricting the use for its current purpose through October of 2026. And we are also in the middle of transitioning ownership over from Verdugo Housing Corporation, a nonprofit entity that we've partnered with, to Door of Hope. So for all of that reason, we do believe that this is the quickest and probably at least equal, if not more cost effective, to make it ready for our ideal use.
Because it looks like, as I said, it looks like a long stay motel or hotel. That's what it converts into. Maybe existing long stay hotel would be a way to go. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. That's all my questions.
Mrs. Meigen, please.
One more follow-up. So the Excel budget that you submitted had a total of 1.937, but in our paperwork, the total is 2,063,000. So that's like $130,000 difference. Can you explain that?
Griffin Hattelstad, I basically completed the grant application into the formatting here. I believe that difference comes from the assessment of the in-kind value of donated services. We have a pro bono project manager, Richard Gentilucci, as well as the architectural firm has donated a good amount of services. I'm guessing that's probably the difference there. So
The actual dollar need would be the Excel at 1.9?
Correct.
So would that mean that, the private donations portion then includes the in-kind services as well? So what you would be seeking from CDBG is still 762,000?
Correct.
Thank you.
Thank you. I don't have a question. I just wanted to say that I've had the privilege of touring all of it. I do see that each of the units are very roomy. They're the old, I think 1920s type apartment where, they had the very larger kitchen and the bedrooms were good size and the living room. So I see the reason why you're approaching it in this fashion, and I'm happy also. I add to the fact that you are almost doubling the number of units that you have available for this domestic violence project and housing. I also know that you're in this apartment area, or the apartment building is in dire need of upgrade. And I don't know if you're doing anything to the exterior area. I remember the one thing that broke my heart was the older area where the children used to play. It's like totally, there's nothing. There are no real facilities there for the children except the indoor classroom area. So I'm happy, and I don't doubt that you have multiple other funding buckets that will come in. But at this point in time, it's a possibility. So I just want you to know that if this is not a merit of the project, my particular vote, but the fact that we want it to be shovel ready and ready to go. And so, I know that you will be, and that you're gonna make your goal come true, but that the timing is of the essence. So, thank you.
Thank you. We have one follow-up question.
Just follow up on my budgeting we discussed. Is it fair to say $5-6 million for the renovation if I have a total on it?
Yeah, that's very fair. So that would take into consideration, as you said, the phase 2 and 3, and then the $2 million for phase 1. So you have about $5 million on the lower end of that. 5.2 would be my best guess. A little hard to project out 4 years from now, as we would see phase 3 roughly being in the 3 to 4 year kind of a time frame from today. I was just doing a little bit of quick math on the question around the option of buying another building. And what I've seen in the market is per unit value on the low end of being about $350,000. And if you look at 350 times 25 units, I think that's well over $8 million against a $6 million budget for us to get those 25 units.
Two things. One, you're absolutely correct on the residential, but not on a long stay motel, because that's what you're converting to small units with a kitchenette and a bathroom inside. So you need to compare to those versus the residential, and also sell off your existing property. That has a value as well to add to the $6 million. Then you might have a different numbers. So
Yeah,
look
enough.
into that. Thank you so much.
Oh, sure. Go ahead.
Having seen the facilities, it's I would say that it is different than a long stay motel because of all of the different rooms that you have for the mental health, for the for teaching, gathering as a group, and the what do you call it, therapy session room areas. And so it's a little bit more
I'm so
expensive.
sorry. The new budget is converting. I have visited the facilities. You're absolutely correct. But the new plan they have, it's becoming a long stay hotel, not the existing one. But also doesn't mean long stay hotel does not have rooms for meetings or conferences or even outdoor facilities. We can also provide those on a long stay motel as well. So thank you.
And just one piece of clarification, it's not kitchenettes, it would be full kitchens in each of the units. And then phase 2 would be a major upgrade of all of the program spaces to create more congregant family space.
I just wanted to clarify one thing, since that's because of the back and forth on this topic. You don't own the property. It's owned by another nonprofit.
Yes.
Right?
So Verdugo Housing Corporation has been the owner. We have an agreement right now so that Verdugo Housing Corporation would essentially become a subsidiary of Door of Hope. And that is going to be formalized at a March 25th or 26th, whatever the Wednesday is, board meeting. But we have the agreement in place in order to do that.
Okay, and so there's no danger of we making this investment at some point, whether it's this round or not, and then having a disagreement crop up.
Correct, yeah, that's actually why we are wanting
Okay.
to invest so much at this point, is because Door of Hope is becoming the owner of this.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. If no other questions, and if you don't have any other comments, we thank you for your time and thank you for everything you do.
Thank you.
And
Thank you.
Yeah,
we'll
thank
be
you.
in touch.
You'll be the first to know when the federal budget includes us in it, but your guess is as good as mine about when the passage of that will be, so thank you.
Hopefully. Thank you. Thank you, thank you. Already? What is next, please?
Next is deliberation for you to make funding recommendations, but Ms. Kavarian does have a quick presentation before we go into that.
Chair Avedisian and members of the advisory committee, it's just one slide that I'd like to review with the committee before you begin your deliberations. So just by way of background, the allocation and funding that's available for fiscal year 24-25, again, it's estimated due to the federal budget, we're still waiting to see, but we estimate $1.1 million. And then we also have undesignated fund balance in the amount of $146,795. We do have the returned Catholic Charities funding available at $380,788. And earlier, the committee voted to recommend Essentia return funding as well as Neighborhood Legal Services parking lot return funding, respectively at $51,841 and then $120,000. So that being said, you have about $1.8 million in available funding. And then just as a reminder, city pre-designated projects, we have 2 of them that were approved back in November. So for fiscal year 24-25, there is Pacific Natural Grass at $370,000, as well as Pac Ed artificial turf replacement at $500,000. So there's, to take away from the 1.8 million, there's 870,000 in city projects. We currently have $1.4 million in community agency requests, as you saw today, which leaves us a difference of $500,000, a little over $530,000, a little under $530,000. So this is really what you're working with today.
The 529.
Right, the difference of, yeah.
I have a question.
Yes.
Okay, I'm sorry, in trying to follow it through, I have a question. Where is I guess it's not here yet, the YWCA Glendale Pasadena?
That is correct, Committee Member Quinones Gabrielian, because the agency hasn't sent us a formal letter yet from their board, we can't include them as of yet.
But that would be another $377,884.
Correct, in the future, yes.
Okay, thank you.
If, I'm sorry, Mayor, I'm so sorry, to staff. So let's say we make a decision, whatever, and obviously we can't fund everyone. And then a week, a month, 2 weeks later, YWCA comes back. Is it something we can make a motion now of what happens to that money, or how do we go forward? Because if we're short 529 and 300-some thousand is coming back, if it comes back, but at least we know by email it does. Do we have to meet again next week or more, or what do we do? How do we go around this?
Chair Avedisi, members of the committee, if you'd like, as part of this report, you could designate, should those funds come back, where to go, similar to a contingency plan. So because we're not 100% sure whether the funds will return, you're welcome to provide that direction now, and we'll incorporate it in the motion so that we don't have to come back to you as part of this report. So,
Is there any time frame for us waiting for them? Do they have a deadline, or can we ask them to give us a?
Committee member Garibian, we received an email this morning from the agency, and they told us by the end of the week they would send us the formal letter.
Thank you.
Follow up to that. But if we were to pass a motion that says, as a contingency, if we have extra money come back, et cetera, apply it in the following way, but those numbers may not match up with an agency, let's say, that we're designating, and their project, like it being enough, even in that case, being enough for their project. So we don't, what I'm saying is we don't know whether or not they would be able to fund the balance, right, depending on how big their project is.
Correct.
Chair Avedisian, Committee Member Armenian, I think you're right, depending on what your decision is, and which agency you may or may not be able to fund fully, would depend. So again, I think it's hard to answer the question just because we don't know what your direction is going to be. But if it was to be said that if the YWCA returns all of that money, let's allocate it to this project. And if we, for whatever reason, we don't get the funds back, then that agency essentially would be less the $377,000, and that may or may not be a hardship for that agency. So I think it would depend on, we may just come back to you at a later date to just say that those funds were not accepted by that agency because it wasn't enough if the YWCA does not return their funds. But that does not mean that you can't make that motion today, in the hopes that if the email is accurate and it's just a matter of time before it becomes a formality, that the funds will return and could go towards the project that you essentially allocated towards. It is difficult for us to say too, because we think it's going to come back, but if it doesn't, then you're right. It could potentially be a hardship for that agency and not being able to accept the lower amount, because that essentially would be $377,000 less.
Yeah, so it's really kind of putting it as a placeholder. At the end of the day, staff would come back to us and say, like, if it were, let's say, the full, whatever if there's leftover funds, that is the full amount of a request, that's a different case. But if it's a partial of a request, we wouldn't know until there's conversations that happen with the agency to see whether or not they can take that money and make the project successful. I just want to make sure that we're not falling back into this trap of, amounts not being fulfilling. Going back to the beginning of our conversation today about trying to fully fund projects so that we can ensure a better chance of success for each project. Thank you.
Any other question? No?
I mean, just following up on my colleagues. So if, for example, we have 3 agencies, it's not that complicated, but if we fund phase of Hometman Arad, and then they decide not to return the funds, and then that's going to mess up the whole thing. So it's very hard to consider that funds unless I don't know, it's considering that funds right now, it's a very hard decision.
Historically speaking, Chair Avedisian, members of the advisory committee, it is staff's recommendation that you please fully fund 1, 2 of the agencies, just because of timeliness issues, as committee member Armenian alluded to earlier. It will be very difficult, and we will be going back and forth again, and we've moved forward with the cleanup, as I like to call it, the CIP cleanup, and we would hate to go backwards.
So I just want to make sure I understand that correctly also. So 377, if it comes back, with today's balance of what we have funds available, and by the requests, if we do one or two of the organizations, we can't fund all three, obviously, or we have to do very small portions, and it's not gonna, it doesn't make sense of any project to do that, and I would not suggest that. Basically, whatever's left over, if there is anything left over on the funds from what we have available today in our hands, that will stay in the bucket, basically, until whatever other fundings that comes through. We may have other organizations from the social services. We don't know yet, but we may have somebody else come back and refund their money for whatever programs they have. So that will add on, potentially. It has happened before, right? Middle of the project, they come back, or middle of the year, or whatever it is, before they're starting their projects.
It does happen. It's rare, but it does happen.
So it can come back, and then we'll have more money in a way, but at the same time, we don't know any of that. So the guesswork is, we shouldn't even consider all that, anything in that factor. Just consider what we have today in hand and move forward, correct? Yes. All right. We move forward. We don't have public comments. We move forward.
Actually,
Do you
can
guys want to take a break, or you want to
Ask one more question to the
jump
staff.
in the deliberation straight?
One more question, just to clarify. Let's say the YWCA funds, if we fund two agencies, and the third agency, we allocate that funds, if it comes, it will know on the, let's say, a week from now and all that. How do we do that? Would that be like a subject to, or can we put a recommendation based on that? Like, how would that work?
I think it's the motion that you were speaking to, Ms. Alexanian. Are you talking about the motion that Ms. Alexanian had recommended?
Right, to give one agency that if their funds come in, so we put a motion, for example, third agency, if their funds come in, so we can actually put a recommendation based on that.
Chair Avedisian, members of the committee, I think
How the process is, that's what I'm trying to.
yeah, no, I'm just trying to think without naming any agencies, because I don't know where the committee is headed, but if you were to fund agency A and B fully, or just agency A, you could then say that the remaining of the funds should go towards agency C, so that we know whether it's, if you're fully funding two of them, then the third one could potentially get the remaining that might come in, whether that's the difference that you're left with today plus the WCA funds, or if you want to fully fund one agency and say the other two will get the difference, if the YWCA funds come back. Essentially, it would be similar to a contingency plan, as if we get more funding, you want the funding to go towards these projects. So depending on what your decision is, it's hard for me to say because I don't know which of them you're going to fund or if you're fully going to fund, but you could essentially say that the remaining of the fund should be split this way, and whatever that remaining fund is, whether it's, the little over 100,000 that you would have left today, or in addition to that 377 that will come back, we would follow your contingency plan.
Thank you.
Thank
I
you.
have a follow-up question
Yes.
to that then. Can we do that? Or do we need to have another item in the agenda that calls for a contingency plan? Which means, since it wasn't on the agenda, is that something that we can add here on the spur of the moment? Or because, or is it
We don't
Brown acted not available to add a contingency
We
Chair
don't need to add.
Avedisian, members of the committee member Quinones Gabrielian, we did check with the city attorney's office on Friday, just in case we were able to get the letter from the YWCA to see if we could add that funding to this meeting, and they said that we could.
Okay.
So should we have received the letter, we were going to ask you to make a decision based on the increased amount with the 377. Since we didn't get that amount, I think it would be fine for you to include it as part of this item, because as part of the item, as part of your deliberation, to say that if you do get additional funds, you could allocate it towards this agency. Because we are aware, and we are mentioning it to you right here at the meeting, that there potentially will be additional funds. So the city attorney was comfortable if we did get the letter to say that we can incorporate that as part of this report. So it should also be okay to include it as a contingency, since we don't have the official letter yet. So it shouldn't be an issue. But we could definitely bring it back to you if that's what you wish as well.
No, I wanted, since on Friday, we actually had an item that said contingency process, and we don't have one here. You're saying it would be fine to just make it a part of this item 4B, period.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, we don't actually have to have it on the agenda in order for us to make a motion or add some sort of a direction to the staff. Not an item. All right, anybody, do you guys want, we have on the schedule, we have 15 minutes break. You guys want to take that break, or you want to just continue on?
Let's continue.
Continue? Okay, staff? Any directions? Okay, we're good to go. Alrighty. Any suggestions? Anyone wants to take the lead? All right, Mr. Armenian.
100% to Catholic Charities. %100% to Home Minutemen. And this is probably going to lead to the motion, because obviously the remainder is only a smaller percentage of the Door of Hope request. But I do, just generally speaking, think they need to get clarification on some of their other funding, given the scale and scope, the large scale and large scope of that project. So for now, I would put the balance under Door of Hope, but more as a kind of a placeholder, because later on we'll discuss if additional funds come in. So we do have the 170, right? 171,841. So I would put that 171,841 toward Door of Hope as well. It's still not the full amount. And then the rest is going to be a contingency, right, based on what we come back with. But I would like to fully fund, I think Catholic Charities and Home Minutemen are ready to go. So I want to make sure that we fully fund those. And then Door of Hope, I think, is more of a placeholder for now, given that there's still open questions. So that's my general, I know there's amounts, we can work out what the amounts are, but in terms of what we have at this moment, the balance I would put into Door of Hope. But I don't know if there's a way to just kind of put it in there as a placeholder and not like, okay, you have that amount, because it's clearly not enough for the project. And we talked about, fully funding and not partial funding things. And they have a lot of question marks on the other amounts that they're going to hopefully come back with in the near future.
Chair Avedisian, committee member, Armenian members of the committee, just wanted to point out that in total, after the $870,000 that we have allocated towards city projects, we have a total of $934,000 that we're essentially allocating towards projects. So with what you suggested or recommended, which was fully funding the Catholic Charities at $268,100, fully funding Home Minutemen Gondal Arad for their bathroom renovation at $433,540, that would leave $232,784 towards the Door of Hope project right now. But from what I'm hearing is if if we do get the additional 377, that would be allocated towards Door of Hope. Is that essentially what you're
Correct.
saying? Okay.
Yep.
So to go back to the original question with this recommendation, I know this is just one, but just to use it as an example, if for whatever reason the YWCA does not return their funds, we would essentially go back to Door of Hope and say, would you be able to continue to proceed with 232,000 for your project? Let's assume they say no, that's not enough for us to proceed, or we would definitely have to make some sort of a big change in scope of work. We could hold on to that 232,000 and bring it back to you at the next committee meeting to further discuss what to do with it.
Yeah, so I guess that helps me in my thinking a little bit, which is I'm wondering whether we should not put anything into Door of Hope at this moment, hold on to the extra amount, wait till these questions are clarified. And I think it's inevitable. We're going to have to come back, because there's so many question marks, both on their side and as well as on our side on the 377, that I don't want to be making multiple contingency decisions, contingent on the YWCA, contingent on them, coming back with federal funding, what have you. Can we just park the 232 for now and then just make a decision to come back? Because even if we were to pass a motion that says, if YWCA comes back, this money goes over there, it's just a lot of ifs. From my perspective.
Chair of DC and members of the advisory committee, committee member Armenian, yes, you may leave it undesignated. So in the action plan, when we submit that final action plan to HUD, we can leave those dollars as undesignated until the committee resumes and returns to another meeting and decides to either fund Door of Hope, I believe it is. And that might be the meeting where we ask them if that money, whatever money that is finalized and we know what the pot of money looks like, if they're okay to accept it, and maybe they have already received other notifications for their other funding sources, and we can actually allocate that then and move that forward.
Because I think just to finish my thought, even if we take the 232, 784 plus, let's say hypothetically, YWCA returns, it's not the full amount for Door of Hope. Gets closer, obviously. But I think it's a big question mark on the federal budget, given we're in a very political year this year. So if that's not enough from our end, and they really need that federal funding to be able to really do this, I'm open to my other committee members if we want to do that contingency, but I still think there's just a lot of question marks hanging. So I think there's two choices. One is do the contingency motion after this, say anything left over on these two fronts goes to Door of Hope, or we could just decide today we're going to park it and say we're going to wait until we hear from Door of Hope in a more specific manner before we do allocation. So my gut tells me we should park it and then just kind of come back when we have greater clarification. But at least I want to leave today with fully funding Catholic and home amendment. That's mine, and then let's hear what the others have to say.
Clarification question?
Sure.
Okay. When do we have to give HUD our recommendations? And the YWCA said they would get back to us within a week?
Committee member Quinones Gabrielian, yes. The YWCA told us they would come back to us by the end of this week.
Okay.
As for HUD, we have until most likely the first or second week of August. We as a city don't like to wait that long to submit our action plan because it jeopardizes our total funding, and that's just not how we operate. We like to turn in our action plan in July and be ready. But again, as I'm understanding committee member Armenian's reservations, we can leave it undesignated. It doesn't have to be committed to a certain project. We can leave it undesignated, submit the final HUD action plan, and then come back in August or late August when the committee meets up again and maybe have that discussion then and see what the pot of money looks like as a whole.
I'm just really concerned about HUD taking undesignated funds. And is that a possibility? No.
That is absolutely not a possibility. No,
Okay.
it is not. It's brand-new funding. It would be new funding coming in for 24, 25.
Good.
Other agencies have done that in the past. We, as a city, have done that in the past as well. We've left things undesignated until we were ready to commit those funds to a project.
Will the city swoop up our funds?
Can't do that just like that.
I mean, is that a possibility too? Because we have, if the YWCA returns the money, we have $610,668, which is almost, it's very close to what they're asking. And I would love to put a placeholder. I think that's the only thing that I'm concerned about, that we don't put a placeholder on a good project for a high priority.
But you can't put a placeholder unless you just say that when they return money.
Yes,
Right?
right. Make that the contingency, that it goes to the Door of Hope.
But if they don't get federal funding, then the whole thing's in question.
1 second, Mrs. Lincoln needs to.
Thank you, Chair Avedis and members of the committee. The city will not ask, we will come back with a report and make a number of recommendations, but one of the recommendations will not be asking, the city asking for funds. The funds that we currently have in the amount of $870,000 should be enough. As Ms. Kabanjan mentioned, we are in the planning stages of both projects up at Pacific Community Center, so we won't be asking for additional funding yet.
It's good to hear.
All right.
I would like to make a comment on this,
Sure, go ahead.
the two options that we have. I think that not designating it or saying that this is the contingency might tie their hands into what they can do to fill the gap, because I think we heard them say that Supervisor Barger has asked to know about the gap number. Right? So we know that at most we can fund about $610,000, which is about $150,000 short of the portion they're asking from us. So if they need this decision in order to go back to the supervisor and ask to fill the gap, I wouldn't want to prevent that from happening, because then, that'll jeopardize the project in total. And also because the federal funding, we don't know what's going to happen, so they might have to have both of these numbers to go back to the county to see what they can get.
Yeah, I wouldn't, honestly, I wouldn't want to put anything to a sense of, in mind-wise, that, okay, federal or the county monies, putting it aside, or counting on their monies, their funding, in order for us to think about Door of Hope and funding them for whatever level. Whatever we have in our hands, I think that's all we have today, the dollars, whatever we have. And the only thing I would suggest that to put that, what we have available right now, consider that as either a placeholder or put it aside and don't do anything with it until the such time comes that at least Door of Hope will know that there are some funds available at this moment. So whatever they need to do, wherever they need to go to get their differences or work on their project, getting the whatever funding that they, more funding they need. So they can calculate that under that, like $200,000, $232,000, whatever it is, and not to give them more hopes without actually having the funding available.
Chair Avedisian, apologies.
Chair Avedis, can I just say that I agree with Committee Member Manukian that the more clarity we can give to the Door of Hope for available funding, the more clarity and better standing they'll have in looking for the gap funding.
Correct. That's exactly what I said.
Okay,
Let's just
thank you.
only consider the $232,000 that we know we have today. Forget about everything else that
But we
they
can
may.
But we can have a contingency that says that we designate the 232. And if that money comes back, the 377 from the YWCA, we also direct that to go to them. And as soon as that comes in, Door of Hope will have an answer.
I
Chair
agree.
Avedisian,
I
could
agree.
we make a comment that might help the situation?
Sure.
Staff was out trying to call to find out if Dora Pope would be able to accept the 232,000, and they said that that would not be something that they could accept. So unless the amount is higher, they would not be able to work with just the 232. So I'm not sure if that makes a difference in your decision. We're going to check with them to see if a higher amount, like
Okay.
if the Y returns, if that would make a difference for them, if they would be able to accept anything less than the 700,000. But at 232, they would not be able to accept the funds.
I would,
Thank you. Sorry. Go ahead now. We don't want to go back and forth, but let's go to the other members.
just a clarification. Are you asking them if they could have accept 610,000?
Yes, we are asking them if they would be able to accept
Okay.
a higher amount, but less than the 700 that they're
Right.
requesting.
Okay, thank you, because I think that would help me make my decision. I really agree with the contingency fund of the YWCA that seems imminent going to the Door of Hope, and if they accept 610, then we've got a plan.
Well, they're saying that they're not.
No, they're saying they're not going to accept 200. But we're asking them, we're going back and asking them, will they accept 610? Which seems like this YWCA is imminent. It's like we're just waiting. So it's as soon as we hear back from them on Friday, we'll know, is it 610 or is it 200 and something? So if it's 200 and something, we just park it, right? If it's 610 and they accept it, then we have a plan to have the Door of Hope for 610.
Okay, if I guess I didn't understand it correctly. What I heard from you, you mentioned that, Ms. Alexandrian, that you've asked them, if anything less than 700,000, what they're asking, 762,000, if anything less than 762,000, will you be able to work with, or will you accept it, that dollar amount? And they said no.
I apologize. That is not what I meant, or I didn't think I said that. What we asked them is, would they be able to accept the 232,784? And
they
their
said
answer was no.
no.
So what I said is, we're going to ask them now whether they could accept anything higher, like the 600, because if we get the 377, but it'll still be less than the 700. That we're asking them now. We don't have an answer yet.
Waiting, okay. Okay, then I guess let's put this subject aside for now until if we do get an answer. If not, then we'll park the money and we'll make a decision down the road whenever it's ready to go.
Is it safe to say that there is consensus on fully funding Catholic Charities and Home Minutemen from the rest of the committee at this point?
Yes,
Yes.
for me.
Chair,
I was going to ask if I could vote.
Yes.
I haven't had
Go
it, if you may. If we don't designate the 232 and the 300 change doesn't come back, or even if it does, Dora Pope says, I don't want the money. What happens to the 232 if it's not designated for the entire year? We have nowhere else to put it. What happens to HUD? Can we push it to next year, or we have to return the funds?
So Chair Avedisian, members of the advisory committee member Garibian, yes, you can park it and you can wait until a suitable project is available and you can designate those funds to a new project.
For the following year?
Or a current project, yes.
For the following year? So we
Correct.
can push it
You
to
can push
next
it.
year? Okay, that was my first question, to make sure we won't lose it back to HUD or penalized from HUD, okay? As far as recommendation, definitely, even if the 377 or the 200, these were not the issue, we had to either fund one agency or two. I mean, that's the normal sense from it. So irrelevant of the funding issues we had, definitely I'm recommending to fully fund Catholic Charity and Home Minutemen, just to make sure at least two agencies benefit from this year's fundings versus one. And obviously, that Door of Hope still so much unknown as far as their budgets and fundings and what they get. So, I'm recommending definitely those two agencies. And if the YWCA comes back, definitely will. I'm okay to give it to Door of Hope.
Chair Alvedisian, members of the advisory committee, we just received word from Door of Hope that they would be able to take 600,000 if.
They will.
They will
Okay,
be.
they will. Okay, great.
All right, let's
Okay,
move
now
on.
we have an
Just-
answer.
Yeah, assuming.
With the caveat that as long as they get the funding from Schiff's office, because if they can't secure those funds, then they can't do very much with the 600,000, so.
So both funds, the 370, the 600 will go to the next year, added to the next year funds?
If for whatever reason, Door of Hope is unable to proceed, then yes, we would come back to you with a new report at the next meeting, most probably. I'm assuming by the next meeting, we will have more information from Door of Hope as well. And we could either allocate it at that time if there is a need elsewhere that we're made aware of between now and your next meeting, or we keep it and allocate it as part of next year's RFP process. So there's multiple options because the year just started, so we don't know what may come up, whether it's city projects or other agency projects that may need the fund. So you're assuming Door of Hope can't accept it, whether it's the 200 or the 600, we definitely can allocate it as part of your next meeting or bring it back as part of the annual process next year.
So I assume definitely 232 should be undesignated funds instead of recommending for Door of Hope for today anyway, so. All right,
Well, if you do not designate the funds today with the contingency, we'd have to come back to you with a new report to be able to give it to Door of Hope. So
already refused 232.
right. So with the contingency plan that if the Y gets,
YMCA
if
comes.
returns the funding, that goes towards Door of Hope. If you give us direction such as that today, then we don't have to come back to you. But if you don't give us direction today and you want to reconsider, then we'd have to bring back a report to get
It's
direction.
a motion we have to put in.
Yes.
So I'll put a motion that to fund 232,784 to Door of Hope contingent to YWCA's refund of 377,000 to be added to the total of 600,000.
Could you also include the other two agencies that you're funding?
And that's the motion, or?
Yes, so your motion would be, if I may, from what I understood, your motion would be to fund Catholic Charities for the Glendale Community Center project at $268,100, Home and Glendale Ararat for the bathroom renovation project at $433,540, Door of Hope for $232,784, and if there are any funds that are returned from the YWCA, that will go towards the Door of Hope project as well.
Yes.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Before we go to vote, I know we've talked about this too much, but one clarification for my mind. If we don't have a motion right now, that 232,000, and we've parked that money in the account, we're waiting to see what happens down the road. Would any of the other organizations that they have current projects that's going and they feel that they're short of funds, would they be able to come back and ask for that kind of like to cover their balance if we fund them to a certain level? Now they see that there is a funding available, they can come back and ask for a little bit more money, even with the committee's direction or not? Would that possible?
Chair Avedisian, if you fund it the way that your motion read today, then no. But if you don't fund it, then yes. If there's funding left, then of course, the agencies could potentially return to request more funding.
Okay. Then that would be a different, continuous of their current projects, correct? If they're, like, if they're
Yes, they-
asking for more money for the
Agencies-
current fundings or current projects that it's already in the process.
Chair Avedisian, members of the committee, they wouldn't be able to propose new projects, but if
Right.
their existing projects do require funding, they would come to staff to let us know that they do need funding. Most probably, we would touch base with the chair to see if we should bring back a report that recommends reallocating existing funding, if we have any funding, and then we would bring it to the committee, yes. So there is an option, if we do have funds and agencies do tell us that they do need additional funding, then staff would bring back a report to the committee for consideration.
Chair Avedisian, I have another clarifying question.
Sure.
Does staff know of any current funded organizations that might be in any need in order for their projects to continue? Do you know of anybody that maybe just didn't make the reports right now in time?
At this time, Committee Member Quinones Gabrielian, Alma House is wrapping up their construction, so they're pretty much done. Home Minutemen is, I'd say, almost halfway through, almost 3/4 of the way through. I would say they would be the ones that may consider if there's something unforeseen were to come up with their roof or HVAC. And then, of course, there's Neighborhood Legal Services, I'm sorry, not Neighborhood Legal Services, Boy Scouts of America, who are evaluating their scope of work, as is Armenian Cultural Foundation. So those are the 4 organizations right now that are either 2 who are in construction and 2 who are in kind of evaluating scope of work.
The Glendale Youth Center, we just talked about this earlier, right? They were going to come back and reduce their scope because the funding that we had given them, $116,000, was inadequate for the entire scope of the project. So that would fit the description that Committee Member Quinones Gabrielian just gave. Like if we wanted, like if they came back to us and said, well, to do everything, we need double that amount, that would fit the profile of what the question was about, right?
Not until we get into the bidding phase would we be able to have them come back and tell us what they anticipate the funding should be. I'll be truthful with you. It's usually at bid phase where they feel they really realize what the total cost of that project is.
Maggie, if I may, just to clarify, I think what Committee Member Armenian was asking is one of the projects when Tamar was presenting, we said that they were changing their scope of work because the $116,000 was not sufficient. So what Committee Member Armenian was saying is, could that project potentially come back and say, we would like to keep the scope the same, but need additional funds? To the short answer, if I may, Chair Avedisian, members of the committee, is at this time the agency has not requested additional funds or brought to the staff's attention that they need additional funds to be able to keep the scope the same. Maybe because they didn't know that there was additional funds available, that they didn't request that. So yes, the short answer is they could potentially come back and state that. It's a matter of what the committee would want to do at that point.
I'm not sure I agree with that characterization, because based on staff's own report, you said that the agency is coming back with a different scope because the funding is inadequate. So yeah, they may not have requested it because maybe funds were not known to be available. But the point is that the funding that we gave them, when we gave it to them, is no longer adequate for the scope.
So you're right, which is why I said maybe the agency didn't know that there is additional funds, but correct me if I'm wrong, Ms. Kavarian, have they said if the city can provide additional funding, we could keep the scope the same?
They have not done that yet.
I don't think that that's relevant, because you've already said that the funding is inadequate. So correct, they haven't asked for it because they didn't think it was available. But they have said that the funding we gave them is no longer adequate for that scope that we had originally given them the funding for. So it doesn't matter which side of the equation we look at it from. I think I'm going back to Committee Member Quinones Gabrielian's question. The core question was, are there current projects that don't have enough funding in order to complete them? I'm just giving that as an example of one that does in fact exist.
And to that, the answer would be potentially.
May I
also, I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, may I just add quickly? I agree with what my colleagues are saying, but at the same time, if we do, that means we have to change the motion not to allocate for Door of Hope and leave the funds just in case an agency, to be specific, that one agency, the shortage of, I'm gonna guess, 100-some thousand shortage. So you want to take the motion of Door of Hope completely out, leave the 232 just in case an agency comes back and wants to tap in to the 232.
You have already made a motion,
I know,
so we
but
have to, regardless, you have already made a motion and we have a second, so we have to vote on that motion, even down or up, and then we can work on a new motion or a different
No, but
direction to the staff.
We're asking questions that might affect how we vote on that. That's why we're having this
Yes.
discussion.
And-
Right, so I think the point here is that we don't have numbers to work with, but we do know that there's a shortfall.
On
So-
one agency.
On one agency that exists in a kind of project that's a few steps ahead of Door of Hope. So I'm just saying that as an option, you could say, how much would it take, agency, to do your full scope of your project? They could come back and say, we don't want to do that, or they could come back with the full, whatever that full amount is, and then you could potentially apply it. So that's a potential direction after the vote.
That's exactly
Or
why my question
We
was.
keep it with Door of Hope. 'Cause look, either way, there's questions on both sides of the equation. There's questions on Door of Hope, too. They don't get the federal funding, then none of this amount is going to be enough.
And may I just say one more thing? I mean, there is a lot of uncertainty, but I looked at it on the equation in the other side of it, that they would return the 116,000, and we'd actually have even more funding available. So, I mean, there's that possibility, there's that possibility too. So if we want to look at that, is it a possibility that they might just say, it's outside of what we need and we'll return the money? I mean, we don't know. So,
Is it possible for us to come back earlier than August, for us to have a special meeting as a, phase 2 of the annual meeting, maybe in 3 or 4 weeks? Is that a possibility? So that we're dealing with more certainty, and we ask the staff to ask that one agency to come back with a concrete answer of whether they're reducing or returning the money or asking for more money. If we could have a second phase of this meeting, then I would like that to be able to vote based on more concrete
I
information.
think, just quickly, I think on the report we had with Ms. Kapanigian, they already said they will do portion of that, which is security cameras and so on and so forth, and fit. No, that was already set, that they will fit within the budget they have, and the already projects are set, right, on those cameras or security or whatever it is.
or
Are they already set in that 120,000 funding availability that they have to do those and not to do the rest?
So ACF received $116,000, and there were 4 parts into their scope of work. The cameras, as well as the key card holder, is part of the work. However, the remaining scope of work is still in discussion how they want to alter in order to make their project fit within the $116,000.
So portion of the scope of the work can be done and they will do, or they still not
Yes,
sure?
they will
So
do
they
the
will
2
do those
portions.
two. So the 116,000, it's already, there is a scope of work that they will do. It's just the remaining, they don't know if they're gonna do or not.
Yes,
Is that
exactly.
correct?
And I just want to make a clarification that we are working on their contract, so that's when we are
Already
altering
there.
their concrete
Do you have a
scope
rough
of work.
number on the remaining scope of work? Have they mentioned proximate cost?
No, they have not.
They have not.
There were some changes, yeah.
So again, from what I understand, the 116,000 is not coming back, right? That we're set on.
No, they are not canceling their project.
That's not coming
They
back.
are moving forward with it, yeah,
All right. Thank you.
of course.
well, I'm open to a friendly emotion, but I'm also open to continuing with a vote. Whatever, as a second, I'm open to a friendly amendment.
Okay, I would, sorry.
Chair Avidis and members of the committee, I just want to add that The funds available, if we have any funds available, which we do, we would need to go out and RFP those funds. So we would need to open up the funds to all of the current CIP project organizations, current organizations that have CIP projects, and ask them if they need additional funds to complete their projects. So, and then
We wouldn't just be able to
we
address
won't be,
one.
we won't be able to address one agency that needs funds. We would need to open up
To all.
to all. And then we would come back to the committee with our recommendations.
But again, that's if we don't pass our first motion and we put another motion
Yes.
to leave the 232 untouched, and that's when you go to the agencies.
Yes.
So basically, the 116 is going to be used.
That's done.
And
Yes, that's not a
we
request.
can't give them more money because we would have to open it up to everybody.
Right.
So we're back to,
Sorry, if I may, Chair Avedisi, members of the committee, it's not an official, just to clarify, it's not an official request for proposal if they're existing agencies with existing projects, but we do need to open it up to all existing agencies with existing projects should they need additional funds. Just want to clarify that it wouldn't be a brand-new RFP unless that's the direction you want to give for the remaining funds. So we wouldn't go out and do a brand-new RFP if there were existing agencies who are currently funded that need more money. You've done this in the past where there have been agencies that have returned and there's been available funds because someone else has returned it, and we've reallocated the funds to the existing project. But it doesn't mean that we have to do a brand new RFP because that would then open it up to brand new project proposals.
Completely zero.
So we could if you want us to, but that doesn't necessarily, it's not necessary for agencies who are existingly funded for projects. So just to make that point of clarification.
When there's return money from that bucket. But this is a different bucket of money, new bucket of money, right? So according to what we just heard from Mr. Bulanikian, we would have to go and RFP to those existing project agencies, right? Is that what I'm
Correction,
hearing?
we would need to make the funds available to
But a
those existing
competitive-
agencies.
competitive process.
It won't be a competitive.
It won't be?
No,
But the 232 or the 377 or both?
77.
377.
So not the 232 because it's this year's. So the 232 will not go back to the existing agencies with the existing projects. Only the 377 will
could
go
be
back.
reallocated.
So we still have to park the 232 anyway. So I'm suggesting the following. We still don't know if Door of Hope will take it or not because their other fundings has to come in. So our motion that we put in existing motion, it also will depends on Door of Hope's accepting it, right? I mean, Door of Hope can come back and say, we don't need the 600 because we didn't get any funding, for example. Then the entire 600 goes back to the bucket. That's when 232 will remain for the following year, and the 377 can go back to the agencies. Is that correct? So the only thing that I'm thinking, what is the deadline for Door of Hope to tell us, yes, we do need it, or no, we don't need it? Is there a time frame on that?
Chair Avedisian, members of the advisory committee, committee member Garibian, Door of Hope is in a similar circumstance like the city of Glendale. They're waiting for the federal budget to pass. They are going to go back to the Congress on March 22nd, but that doesn't mean that they're going to pass it. They're going to discuss it and continue to discuss it. We really don't have an answer for you at this time.
No, but us as a CDBG, do we have a deadline for agency to accept the recommendation or not and all that?
If they don't have their answer to the HUD funds that they're anticipating from Adam Schiff's office, they won't be able to let us know.
I know, but do we have a deadline?
Well, our deadline is August 16th,
That's what I'm saying. So
Yeah.
worst case until August 16,
but we don't want to wait until then, as I had
I understand
mentioned.
that, but that's
yeah.
their deadline anyway, so.
Correct, to submit an
Okay,
action
then what I understand in everything that's, I think we're going too much over the same subject. At this point, either we have to basically vote down what was already, motion was on the table. Either we vote it down and we put a new motion, whatever that may be, for that remaining $232,000, not considering the 377, it's a different subject and different thing. So, and then we can ask or request the staff to come back before August 16 in order for us to evaluate and see where we want to put that dollar amount, that additional dollars that is available, one or the other.
Chair Avedisian, just to clarify for the rules of the meeting, because there's a motion and a second, the person who made the motion could withdraw their motion if you don't want to take a vote on it, and somebody new would have to propose a new motion as well.
Right,
So
right.
you
Right.
could either take the vote or they could withdraw their motion.
Yeah, either withdraw or vote it down. Okay.
Then one clarification on again, is because one question brings another. So if we don't, do we know from the agencies that we're going to go back and say availability of the funds goes back to any open projects or only the previous years? Because we have projects that it's still not finished from the 2019 or so.
We do, but at this time, it would be the Boy Scouts, Armenian Cultural Foundation, Home Minutemen potentially, because they're still working on their roof. And those would be the ones that we would consider.
Okay, so 3 potential agencies, and dollar amounts we don't know, but 377, I'm sure will cover if all 3 agencies come back.
Okay. So let's, I guess, either the motion maker, Mr. Caribbean,
You
you
know,
want,
based on what I heard, and is the uncertainty of Door of Hope, especially there's no certain deadline. We don't want to drag it until August. And we know one agency for sure is short in funds to finish their remaining, and there's 2 other could potentially be short because of expenses. I would like to withdraw my motion.
the motion is withdrawn. Does the second has to withdraw their motion? The second? No? Okay, the motion is withdrawn. Now we move forward. We have existing motion to accept or to fund Catholic Charities for $268,100 and Home Minutemen Glendale Arad for bathroom renovation for $433,540. And the remaining balance, the dollar amount, which is $232,784.13, that will sit untouched, undesignated until our next meeting or what direction that comes back. Now we can make a decision to have a meeting before August 16 in order for us to designate whatever funding that's additional available, correct?
That is correct, but staff does not recommend that.
Oh,
That
okay.
would be because of the uncertainty and the timing, we are not confident that we can submit the action plan in a timely fashion because we still have to take it to the City Council and Housing Authority and be on that agenda for that.
Chair Avedisian, can you plug in a date?
For the,
Instead of August, can you choose a date?
it would be most likely the first week of June if possible.
Oh, that's what I was saying, before August 16. So any date before August 16, whatever the staff sees feasible. Correct?
I'm sorry, I'm not sure that I understood the motion.
Well, the motion right now, what we already had the motion was to fund the Catholic Charities as requested and Home Minutemen Ara chapter with the restroom renovation for their ask, the $433,540. Now, the balance of that will remain untouched, unfunded on the side, and staff will recommend a date for the committee to come back to look at, based on everything else that we already spoke about, all the fundings that potentially may come back. So then we can redesignate those funds one way or another.
Chair Avedisian, from what I'm understanding, we would not be able to come back to you and have a complete plan to present to council and submit to HUD in time if we had to meet before the annual plan is due. We can definitely leave the 232,784 undesignated. We just can't make a decision on that 232,784 before June to be able to meet the deadline for submission. So we could regroup later on in the year to rediscuss that 232. We just wouldn't be able to take your recommendation, have another meeting, then have to present that again to council and submit it to HUD in time. So all we're saying is it could remain undesignated. We just don't want to necessarily regroup before the annual plan is due, because we wouldn't be able to incorporate that into the plan to be able to get it to HUD in time, because it needs to be presented to city council and submitted to HUD.
I guess you're understanding me incorrectly. Exactly what I'm saying, that I don't want to delay it or wait till August. Whatever date that staff sees feasible, we come back to that date to do that. So we don't need to wait till August. I'm not giving any dates of what day or time they come back. It's whenever the staff sees feasible to come back, to regroup and
I'm
So
sorry, I see an issue there.
staff's response is that we don't think it's feasible to come back and submit the 232 as part of the annual plan. So
Right.
we would submit the annual plan and just leave the 232 as undesignated. If you're comfortable with that, okay.
But why are we doing that? I'm starting to understand. We're doing that until we find out about the 377? I mean, what's the purpose of, if it's undesignated, period, end of story for this year's funding. But if you're gonna allocate for Door of Hope by any chance, that means the 377 has to come in as well. So this motion, or whatever you're putting in, it's only for 7 days or 10 days. Once the 377 comes in a week, then we need to again decide, are we giving a Door of Hope or we're allocating for the...
Well, plus without
other-
federal funding, even that full amount is not enough for
So
them.
I would say we have to, again, I'm thinking we have to put a motion to fund the two agencies and end of story, it's over. And have a motion for 377 if he comes back to be open available funds for the agencies to go back and say, we have 377, anybody needs money or not. So it's two motions, I'm guessing, right?
We actually don't need a motion on the 377 at all.
motion
We
at all.
don't need a motion.
So
We'll
one
bring that
motion-
back to you once we get a
When that
letter from
happens,
the Y. We'll bring that back to you at your next meeting. So we don't need a motion for the 377. We just need a motion for today's funding allocation, which I
Without the
understood
Door
to
of
be
Hope.
the 268,100 to Catholic Charities, 433,540 to Home and Edmond Glendale, and the 232,784 remain undesignated at this time.
that's exactly
I'll
right.
make that motion.
Sure. I just want to make sure that we don't, like, the expectation wasn't for staff to come back for direction before the annual plan needs to be submitted. So if, as long as that's the motion. And who made the motion?
I made that motion.
I'll second that motion, too. And just a point of clarification, Congress can go all the way to June, till the end of the year, or go on an emergency,
they're
week
gonna
by
look
week
at it,
or day by
emergency
day,
this
right?
week.
In June, et cetera. Right? All the way to the end. So that's just my reasoning to, after all this discussion, agree with parking the money.
All right,
Roll call?
Let's take a
roll call, please.
Okay. Committee Member Armenian?
Yes.
Faribian?
Yes.
Quinones Gabrielian?
Yes.
Vice Chair Manukian?
Yes.
Chair Avedisian?
Yes.
Motion passed. Thank you.
Okay.
Next item is committee and staff comments.
Committee members, anybody has any comments?
I'll go first. Again, I want to thank the staff for all the hard work. It was much easier this year due to lack of limited agencies, so made it so much easier, obviously. And every year we learn something new as far as what happens to agencies and capabilities and fundings, and it's a good learning process as well, and hopefully agencies can watch these videos and learn from it. And also want to remind everyone to vote tomorrow, I guess, right? It's the voting time, so go out there and vote. Definitely go out there and vote if you haven't. And I want to thank my colleagues for having all the right questions and getting things done. So thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Anybody else?
A quick thank you to the staff and to all of the organizations that came to present for this budget cycle. And that's it. I appreciate my colleagues and staff. Thank you.
Thank you.
Just a ditto.
Go ahead.
Everything everybody else said, I agree with.
Same here.
Sounds good. All right.
We do
Staff
have,
has some comments.
we do have a few staff comments. As you know, that the annual action plan is to be determined at this time, so we don't anticipate giving you even a tentative date for the City Council Housing Authority meeting, but once we get that, get the final allocation, we will be inviting the committee to join us at that meeting, most likely in June. But we are going to go before City Council and the Housing Authority this year on April 2nd, and we do invite the committee to join us. It is the 50th anniversary of the CDBG program. We're very excited to present a beautiful video that was created by our GTV6 folks and to celebrate all the wonderful projects we've done over the years. Not sure if you are aware, but CDBG started in 1974, and the city of Glendale started in 1974, the first year that CDBG was in effect. So it is a very exciting year this year. And then, of course, every year, every CDBG meeting, we like to highlight one agency, and this time around, we have Armenian Relief Society. We want to do a spotlight on their community service. So, Ms. Alexandrian.
I came to the Armenian Relief Society a few months ago because I needed help for housing.
Տարիներ շարունակ ամեն հարցում թղթեր արել չեմ հասկացել, բերել եմ շատ սիրով, օգնել են ինձ։
Я со своей семьей приехала из России. The services that our organization provides are open to all community members in need. Low-income individuals and families, immigrants, refugees, seniors, disabled adults, homeless persons, and unemployed individuals.
Our focus is on providing case management, employment services, English as a second language classes for older adults, senior services, services to disabled adults, rapid rehousing program for homeless individuals, linkages to public benefit, outreach, and food pantry services, and more.
Мы узнали про ЭРС-центр и пришли сюда за помощью. Нам нужна была помощь в заполнении документов.
The services we provide transform the lives of a very vulnerable population,
such as increasing their self-esteem, advancing their English language capability, and being able to become self-sufficient and productive members of society.
Armenian Relief Society Social Services has been operating in the community for over 40 years. Our mission is to improve the standard of living of individuals and communities that are most in need and to help meet societal needs. Our organization is often referred to as a one-stop center where community members in need turn to for a wide array of public services, either by way of appointments, a walk-in basis, or even through telephone support.
The Armenian Relief Society is a place that I would recommend to anybody who's struggling out there.
Здесь вам помогут независимо от вашей национальности и от того, на каком языке вы говорите.
Կառաջարկեմ բոլորին, որ կան օգնություն ստանան հոմից։
Wow, that was a great video. That was a good presentation. Thank you, staff. Thank you, GTV. 6.
And then lastly, we'd like to highlight one of our staff members who is going to be leaving our CDBG program in the city of Glendale. Ms. Lusaper Bogosian came to us as a first-year freshman in college, and she has started with the CDBG program and has always been here to help us during these very important meetings. She received her bachelor's degree in mechanical engineering from the California State University, Northridge, and she is now she has a full-time job in the private sector, and we're sad to see her go, but we're really excited for her new career.
Oh, congratulations. Best of luck. Thank you for your service until now. All right, if we have no other comment, again, thank you all for being here, spending all your time for the last 2 days, last Friday and today. My colleagues and staff, thank you for everything you do. Make our life a little bit easier when we're times to deliberate. Anyways, thank you very much. If no other comments, the meeting is adjourned at 11:14 a.m. Not even noon yet. Thank you.